Great. Hello, everyone. I'm Ossi Hanhinen. So two things about myself. I can do this. And I've been coding Elm for production for past half a year, and I've never actually used React. But thanks for voting for me for this React conference. So my talk is titled Joy of Composition, Why Stateless Rendering is Pure Bliss. Now, meet Joy. She's a front-end developer like you and me, and she has this great new idea. She's going to build GitHub and decides to use React for it. So she just starts hacking away, and in the beginning, she's very content. The code is very elegant, very simple and readable. But as time goes on, she adds a little event handling logic there and a little lifecycle code over there. And she soon finds herself in this never-ending swamp of JSX. And she's struggling to know where the components start and where they end and what they depend on. But what's worse, she doesn't know where the state lives anymore. So she takes a little breather, a moment of zen. She tries to figure out what went wrong from the very beginning. Now here's HTML for you. The structure here depicts a very simple menu, as you can see, but already we can see the problem. There's a very deep nesting, even in this very trivial example. So, well, deep nesting is bad because it obviously makes your code less readable. But there's other problems as well. We are used to binding the data and the structure of the page, which basically means the UI, together up to the point where we are actually repeating ourselves. Now, there's a lot of ways to solve some of these problems, like Angular repeats and Mustache template repeats and stuff like that. But also there's the functional ways of doing that, like the array map function. So Joy decides to take a look at the UI from another point of view. She figures, if I only had this solid block of data that's read-only, I could just pass it down to a function that takes it and returns the corresponding HTML. And doing so, she could just delegate stuff from there. She could have a render header that takes stuff regarding the header, and maybe just render menu, menu item, or even just the item link. So since the data was read-only, none of the functions could actually alter that data state. So that means there's no weird state ever. Render is essentially a pure function from the state to HTML now. So this also brings composability. So Joy can start working on the prototype using just the render app function. But as time goes on, she can split it to rendering the main panel and the side panel. But she can also split those up any number of times. And it doesn't matter. It's just functions. She can also combine functional utilities like Lodash or whatever to do the rendering. And she doesn't have to worry about the whole UI at the same time, so she can focus on the component. Now here's a quote from a friend of mine who's sitting right there and going to present tomorrow. Most UI code should look small. It's actually a cold smell if you have JSX with lots of nesting. So Joy comes to this conclusion. If you're working on a drop-down menu, you shouldn't actually be thinking about how to render a single item in that menu. So left with these pure thoughts, she's found her zen. And for her next project, she decides to go all functional and maybe go for Cycle.js and Hyperscript helpers instead. Hyperscript helpers is actually a project of my own. It makes writing VDOM basically simple functions. And of course, you could go all the way and use Elm or ClojureScript instead. So that's it. I'm Hanhinen on Twitter and GitHub. Please feel free to poke me, real life or virtually, if you have any questions or comments. Thanks.
Fantastic.